Welcome to Judicial Dollars and Cents, brought to you by Anders Virtual CFO Services team from all across the United States. I'm John Scott, and in each episode, we'll shine a light on the financial side of the legal world, turning law firm numbers into impact-driven stories. From taxes and profitability to practice growth and leadership, we sit down with law firm innovators who are shaping the future of the profession. Let's dive in, right here on Judicial Dollars and Cents. Welcome back to Judicial Dollars and Cents, the podcast where we dive into the business side of running a law firm. I'm John Scott with Anders Virtual CFO Services for law firms, and each week we talk to industry experts who help law firm leaders think differently about growth, profitability, and performance so they can build practices that last. Today we have Darren Findling. Darren is the president of the Probate Pro, a nationally recognized probate and trust litigation firm based in Detroit, also with an office in Florida. Known for stepping into complex, emotionally charged legal situations, Darren has built a practice focused on solving problems others often avoid. His personal story and early experiences shaped a career dedicated to helping families and businesses navigate conflict with clarity and purpose. Darren, welcome to the show.
I appreciate it. I'm not sure where you got that bio from, but it's quite nice. The only correction I'll make is that we're not just in Michigan and Florida, we're actually national, and we have physical offices in different states. So beyond just those two states, but terrific. Great to be here, John, and look forward to having a good discussion with you.
Well, I figured the Florida office was out of convenience so you could get away from the Detroit winters, but maybe that's not true.
I'm kind of cut from a weird cloth. I actually love Detroit winters. I love cold weather. I'll run when it's 5 degrees outside. Not that I'm not in love with warm weather too, but I actually love change of seasons. I love the weather here. I'm kind of unique because most of the people around me are dying to get out of Michigan to seek warmer weather when it's so harsh during the winter.
You know, for years, I took my family on vacation to South Florida in the summertime, and I died. My wife loved it. She would spend the whole day on the beach from sunrise to sundown. I'd go out for 20 minutes and, break out in a heat stroke and come back in. We finally figured out about 7 years ago that we should go to Wisconsin or Michigan in the summer and Florida in the wintertime.
Yeah, we see a lot of that happening. Northern Michigan and then summer kind of rotation. We see a lot of that.
Hey, I want to dig into your origin story. And this is something I do with everybody because I love to know and understand where people come from. Tell me how you got to where you are today. What started it?
Well, I was born in the backseat of a 1969 Oldsmobile Cutlass. That's kind of the origin story. Can't get more unique of an origin story than that. I was literally born in the backseat of the car. The umbilical cord was cut in the backseat of the car and never made it to the hospital. I was the youngest of 4 in a pretty dysfunctional family. So the beginnings of my story occurred with a lot of chaos, a lot of wildness within just from the origin story all the way through childhood. I actually have this picture really close to me, so I'm going to just see if I can hold it up here. This is my family of 4. I keep this nearby as a reminder of my roots and my origin story of just kind of a wild beginning, a lot of opportunity to explore, to make mistakes and have natural consequences from those mistakes. And I was the youngest in a family of 4 kids, wild household, a household that the whole neighborhood knew about. We were the family that everyone talked about. I think those people that have experienced that know what that means. We were the family that was probably the gossip of every single household in the community, the constant wild behavior that was going on in the household.
You and I talked about this beforehand, and I have a similar chaotic, dysfunctional background. And I think that, I don't know how you feel about it, but I feel like as an adult, that history that we have with the chaos helps us deal with chaos today better than others who lived in a more leave it to beaver type situation.
Well, what's that song expression? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So there are those who will go through this type of traumatic childhood and fail and have struggles, whether it's alcoholism, drug use, jail, real problems. And then there are those who build calluses and grow stronger. And for me, I was very fortunate that I came out of this dysfunction and learned a lot of lessons along the way, but also learn how to navigate through these difficult situations. So, it's kind of a fine line. I don't have a prescription for anybody that's going through difficult times as a child, but if you're able to come through it and come and emerge out of it, you're going to be better than, those who have been, snowplowed as a parent all the way through your childhood. There's a metaphor that I often use that if you have in Michigan, you remember those, you see them in other states too, but a moth will, or a butterfly will form a cocoon in a curled leaf. And as a kid, you used to kind of open up the leaf to see what was inside. And there was a web of a cocoon, and inside was a little larvae. Well, if you open up that larvae and help that larvae, it falls to the ground and just shrivels up and dies. But if you let that larvae struggle out of the leaf and have struggles along the way, it flies away as a beautiful butterfly. And so there's a fine line here between being in an unsafe environment and an environment where you're just, you're snowplowed forward and there are no problems that you experience along the way. I feel very fortunate that I was able to be in the environment that I was in. There was struggle, there was pain, and I emerged out of it with a lot of great assets that I could use professionally moving forward, as well as raising my own family.
That's a great story and a great example of the butterfly. Hey, let's talk about your firm. So your firm is a national firm, does probate and estate planning. How did you decide to expand? And well, let's start with that.
Sure. So, I got out of law school with no cases, no business, no first paycheck. I literally was given an opportunity by my father to open up my own practice in his office. He was a solo practitioner, had no real interest in growing into a larger firm. But he said, hey, instead of applying to other law firms, why don't you come in and I'll teach you how to be a lawyer? And so he said, listen, I can't pay you. I don't have any clients to give you, but you'll learn from me. And I said, okay, that's great. I love my dad. I'm like, I'm young. I don't have very many bills. I might as well give this a shot. And again, a great moment in my story here, which was to bet on myself to grow and to build and to scale. I remember my first few days in my office, I was in a windowless closet, not an office, but truly a windowless closet with a desk, and my dad got me a phone. The phone was sitting on the desk, and I remembered after an hour or two staring at the phone, wondering why the phone wasn't ringing. In my mind, I had not contemplated that. I just assumed that the phone would start ringing and I'd have clients. I hadn't even thought that through. You weren't taught that in law school, and you surely hadn't been told by anybody that you're going to have to figure out a way to make rain. I stared at the phone, very frustrated that it wasn't ringing, and I remember making a commitment to myself that I'm going to make that phone ring. That is all I'm going to do. I'm going to make that phone ring so much that flame and smoke is going to come out of that phone. And I developed a strategy of marketing so that I could make that phone ring. I understood early on, I was entrepreneurial. I understood that there was a need to bring in the business, not just work on the business. And I focused a lot of energy in doing that. So my origin story as a lawyer was a story of having no clients, having a father with a good last name and a good reputation, and a closet. And my responsibility was to make that phone ring. And so I was fortunate that early in my, in my career, I started doing some probate related work because I had been taught well in law school. I figured I understood this, not really the estate planning piece of it, but the administration litigation piece of it. And again, one client, develop a reputation, 2 clients, 5 clients, dozens of clients, hundreds of clients, and grew it into the largest probate practice here in the state of Michigan. And then I opened an office in Ohio with a similar model, and then opened up an office in Chicago, and then opened up an office in Florida before I went national with the work that we were doing. I was always very good at scaling, recognizing and understanding niches. So once I figured out the niche, I understood how to double down, triple down, keep putting more wood into the fire to make it roar and to scale. And so that's kind of the very, very short explanation of the growth of the firm. And along the way, I was mentored by lots of great, talented people. I asked people to help me along the way. And I was really fortunate to be surrounded by people that gave me great advice and wisdom along the way to help me get to where I am today.
What a great non-traditional entrepreneurial story, because most folks would go to work in a law firm, learn estate planning, learn probate, and then say, I'm going to go do this on my own. You just had a dad who gave you a closet with a phone and you had to figure it out. So you were hungry. How do you currently charge for the work you do? Is it hourly, fixed fee?
Yeah, I do want to say something about the hunger piece that I think is a really important statement that you made. I was hungry always. And even today, when I wake up in the morning, that hunger, that feeling, that drive still drives me today, no different than it drove me in my early 20s when I became a lawyer. This tremendous drive existed within me, and I presume it existed my whole life. Tremendous hunger and drive to succeed, build, create. So that still lives within me each day. And why that exists, whether I was wired that way or I learned that along the way, I don't really know, but I've always kind of had that drive and hunger. And so to the question about the billing and how we charge and all the modeling in all this, it's actually not a one size fits all. We've got offices and different lines of business that, depending on the state, dictate whether it's flat charge or time-based charging. A lot of our work is time-based charging, depending on the community, time-based charging for our work. But really the kind of the thing that is the engine that allows the growth is the fact that we are recognizing needs that exist primarily from other professionals. Most of our business comes from lawyers from around the country. About 85% come in from just other professionals and lawyers who are supporting us and feeding us the business. That model, because my particular industry is generally a high volume, low margin business, is a more sustainable way of growing than going and trying to acquire a new client one at a time. It's very expensive to acquire a client each time versus creating an annuity model such that the business is going to keep coming from your referral sources. So that was a model that we developed probably 25 or so years ago, that we wanted an annuity model, not a model where I went direct to consumer and tried to get a new client each time.
That's a great service to the other attorneys who don't want to do the probate and estate work, but they want to maintain a relationship with the client, not refer it to someone in town who would potentially steal the relationship. And it is an annuity, because if you've got a referring attorney, they're always going to continually send over those cases. Do you have any sort of a fee split with them?
No, actually, interestingly, the largest firms around the country are feeding us business. So we've developed these strategic relations with these very, very large firms. Now, not all of them are massive, but many of them are quite large and some of them are quite small. We work with all. And the agreement, kind of the relationship, is that we're providing a service to them. They need the probate related work done. So we have this kind of relationship where there's a give and take. It's a win-win model where we're providing a service to them. We're providing a service, of course, to the end client. And of course, we get the benefit of the legal work. So that's the kind of the general framework, although our brand strength brings in calls, direct to consumer calls, no different than any other firm that's out there. I would just say to people who are maybe listening to this and trying to identify how to grow and scale, it's really hard to get one client at a time. I will say that I started that way. It was just one client doing great work, outworking everybody else, growing it, reputationally growing it. But ultimately, I wanted to scale. I wanted to scale at a level that had not yet been done by any other firm that I'm aware of nationally that had not done this. I was really entering into uncharted territory. Unless you're going to do a massive advertising campaign and spend huge dollars to do that, that's a very complicated, expensive roadmap to get there to where we've gotten. So our plan was, let's work with firms that we can develop strategic relationships with and develop those relationships and provide a win-win opportunity for all the firms involved.
I do know of at least one other firm that it's grown nationally with a niche area of the law, but you're right. It's flooding the airways and the billboards with advertising to drive new clients into the firm. But I want to get back to when you service a client that came from a large referral source, a large law firm, is it white labeled, or do they know they're working with your firm versus the other firm?
Yeah, no, they absolutely know they're working with our firm. It's not white labeled, and we are working on the file contemporaneously. So we're working on the file at the same time they're working on the file. We're performing different roles, but we're working on it at the same time, and there's no white labeling of our services.
Are you engaged by the client or by the firm?
Well, a little bit of both. So the referring entity is entering into an agreement with us to send us work, and we are being engaged directly by the end client. So the individual is actually retaining us. So although we may get referred somebody, the client has to agree ultimately to engage our services and agree to having us get involved.
So there's two types of lawyers out there. There's the type that thinks that AI and automation is going to be the death of the profession. And then there's the type that embraces it in order to compete up with larger organizations. And I imagine, since you said this is a high volume, low margin area that you work in, automation and AI have to be a big part of what you do.
Yeah. I am on AI all day long. And we try to get everyone in the office to be utilizing AI in a variety of forms all day long. So from morning till night, I've got various AIs that I'm utilizing in various forms, whether it's LLM, deep research, agentic. I'm using it all day long. Now to your primary question about whether this is an existential threat to my business. So first, I'll tell you that we are trying to remain way ahead of the curve on AI. So we're investing heavily in the use of AI for almost every aspect of what we're doing to build out strategies to deliver a more efficient product and service for our clients. So that's happening. And I could also see a day in which AI could destroy mine and many lawyers' business value proposition. And so I know you can appreciate this, and everybody that's listening that's a lawyer can appreciate this. You went to law school, you spent a lot of money and invested heavily in that law degree, and that law degree then allows you to sell your services. There's a scarcity of knowledge that you have, and you get to sell that at a very high rate to other lay people, and it's a great value. Well, that scarcity of knowledge is being democratized, and it will be ubiquitous. Everybody that is utilizing AI is going to have the greatest minds in legal available to them. So there is a risk here that, and I would say this with almost every profession that's delivering services or knowledge-based work, that AI is an existential threat to their model. Now, again, the part that I believe that the Probate Pro has a leg up is, number one, when Elon Musk said that everyone was going to be driving a self-driving car by year 2020, that hadn't happened. It's going to happen, but it surely didn't happen in the time frame upon which that great visionary recognized or thought it would. So I do believe there's going to be a longer period of time to allow for the universal adoption of a lot of this AI that's going to wipe out certain roles. And at the same time, I recognize that there's going to be a period of time that things that we're doing will be able to be done by a layperson. I see a day in the not too distant future where a client or lawyer will be sitting in court with an earbud, And as the judge is asking questions, they're being fed appropriate responses with appropriate legal. Right now in depositions, while the dep is going on, you can get suggested responses to the questions that are being asked.
Wow.
So we're seeing lay people right now filing documents that are clearly AI created, no different than an 8th grade teacher that knows that their student didn't write this. I can smell a lot of AI created documents. And the documents are okay. They just pass muster. They're not great, but they're okay. But you could see that in a year, year and a half, 2 years, 3 years, they're going to be great.
It is constantly evolving and getting better. But I think the entrepreneurial background that you have will keep you and others that have that same spirit ahead of that curve. So you'll be able to change with the times and survive. It will be different. What you're doing 10 years from now, 5 years from now will be different. But as long as you keep changing, you're going to be fine.
And John, I think that going back to that origin story, being adaptable in or comfortable in discomfort is really a key attribute to allow you to continue entrepreneurially to survive as times are changing. I'm an agent of change. I believe that I have a responsibility to keep disrupting and changing my own business. My job is to go to conferences, meet people, come up with ideas to constantly disrupt my business. That may sound contrary to what most people believe the CEO's job is, but I believe my job is to truly disrupt my business constantly so that my rest of my team puts order back to it. And most of those disruptions get softened or quieted pretty quickly because maybe they're not a great idea. But once in a while, the idea is great and it allows us to grow. So with AI, my responsibility is to understand the environment, understand the possibilities, and then stay ahead of the curve to utilize AI in such a way that will allow the Probate Pro and our business to scale and grow and deliver a higher level of service.
I want to get back to growth and how you decide where to go and where the next new office is. But I spent 17 years working with a really entrepreneurial attorney who grew his practice from the St. Louis area to across the US and in the UK. And he did it by having great financial data. And it was current and accurate. And he would make decisions and he would say, okay, we're going to XYZ city. And in 6 months, we'll be break even and start being profitable in month 7. How do you decide where you're going next? Is it based on where you can get a relationship with a referral source, or what do you pay attention to?
Excellent. John, you reminded me, there was a commercial many years ago of this business that they were expanding really quickly, and he has a dart in his hand in the commercial, and he says, the next office will be opened up, and he throws the dart, and it lands at a city, and they're like, Hoboken, and everyone cheers. And there was, the idea that there was no strategy was kind of wild and random. In my case, we are really committed to data. We obsess over data. We measure every possible thing we can measure in this office. Now, you have to have the platform to do that. We don't operate based on gut. Gut may give you inspiration to do something, but then gut has to be validated by data. So, for example, when I opened up in Chicago, I had created extensive analysis of every single state in the country, every community, where the insurance companies were doing this, where the personal injury industry was doing that, size of population, that opportunities for billing. We had lots of data. And then simply that data was ranked from next state all the way down to the worst state to open up. And we ranked them. So data, was used then, and data is used in every decision we're making here. And we're measuring everything. So I'm in front of dashboards. you can't see my screens, but I have 4 screens that are large here. And when I'm not on a podcast, I'm staring at data that's coming at me live to identify things, trends that are happening. Now, the beauty of AI, and more recently, is we can take that data And we used to really study the data, and to analyze the data, you may have to hire a consultant, or you would struggle over it. Now we're using a lot of AI to help us identify trends and help us parse through that data to identify opportunities for growth. So we're feeding lots of data into AI and asking AI to provide us with strategy suggestions. So back to that AI point, we're using AI as a consultant for the business, but we have to have the data. Data is, otherwise you're simply throwing a dart and hoping that things are going to occur. And what do they say? Hope is not a strategy.
It's not.
So, yeah, that's just the way we operate here. And
I love your attention to data, because it does a couple other things too. One, we focus on helping attorneys get their financial house in order so that they can make good decisions. But when you pay attention to data along the way, those disruptive ideas that maybe you run with that aren't the right thing, you can recognize earlier if it was a mistake, and you can pivot. Whereas if you're not paying attention to the data, you're going to get 12 to 18 months down the road realizing you have to turn the ship around in the harbor, and it becomes really more difficult to do.
Yeah, John, my son, when he was in business school, taught me a fake term that was presented at business school called creaction. And the idea is that visionaries constantly are creating new ideas. That forms the create. They've got 1 million ideas by noon. And then the reaction is, how does the consumer react to the idea? How does the financial team react to the idea? And the two words combined, create, reaction, form this concept of creaction. And so as I come up with lots of ideas that are, that I'm hearing out in the legal community, I come back, we look at data, we may try things, but we quickly abandon these ideas when the data is not supporting it and the reaction is not positive. So we're reacting quickly so that we can then move on to things that are going to allow our business to move forward. And data has got to be a part of it. And so when I come back with a wild idea and my CFO says the data doesn't support it, I'll show you why, I throw my hands up. I say, no mas. I totally agree. Let's move on. Put that wild idea behind me, and let's now move on to the next idea.
I love your attention to data. Hey, I want to shift gears a little bit before we wrap up. Are you a football fan?
Oh, huge football fan. Watch the Super Bowl. And
like college football. Who's your team?
Oh, I'm a big Michigan Wolverine fan. I'm a big Michigan Wolverine fan. When I was,
so do you have a Ryan Day bulletin board or dartboard?
We don't even mention his name. I do own a Michigan tailgate bus. That
oh wow!
I own a bus, and on the weekends, I invite the neighborhood kids and friends to come on up to Ann Arbor to watch the game. And then myself and my friend, we cook and tailgate and then go to the game. But we're diehards, and
so it's tricked out with all kinds of grills and TVs.
Exactly, it's got 3 televisions in it, and we drove it down to Chicago for the Michigan Northwestern game just recently, and so we have a lot of fun with it. It's super fun. It's a toy. And if anybody is in Ann Arbor, come on to our tailgate. Our mindset is the more the merrier. If you're a friend of a friend of a friend, come on, tailgate with us.
Now, how far will you travel with this Michigan bus?
Well, we made it to Chicago, and the only problem with the bus is it's an amazing bus, but it just doesn't go very fast. And so we're pretty cautious about how far we're willing to drive it. But we're going to continue. We drove it to the Michigan State game. We drove it to the Michigan Northwestern game. We have not yet taken it to that city that you step in down south in Ohio, but we'll make it there one day.
Well, I wish you well, and hopefully you can beat Ohio State. Hey, before we wrap up, how can folks get a hold of you if they are interested in utilizing your firm?
Terrific. I appreciate that. Call us at 833-PROBATE. Visit us at theprobatepro.com. And I'd love to have conversations with people. Again, as I said earlier, I was mentored and helped by a lot of people along the way. If I could be of help in any way, let me know.
Well, thank you. And we'll put all that in the show notes as well. And thank you all for tuning in to Judicial Dollars and Cents. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure and like, follow, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps us grow and ensures you never miss an episode. We'll see you next time on Judicial Dollars and Cents. Thanks for joining us on Judicial Dollars and Cents, presented by Anders Virtual CFO Services. If you found value in today's conversation, be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcast. To learn more about how Anders helps law firms strengthen their financial foundations and drive growth, visit anderscpa.com. Until next time, keep making smart decisions that make perfect sense.